My name is John Levy. It's my distinct privilege to continue to serve as the 10th chair of the board of the Legal Services Corporation. And on behalf of our outstanding LSC board, most of whom are here with us tonight, I welcome you to this remarkable forum on increasing access to justice. It's so great to see so many of you here after what has been now nearly 4 years, a COVID hiatus, in having an in-person forum here in the nation's capital. Thank you to Congresswoman Mary Gay Scanlon, co-chair of the Congressional Access to Legal Aid Caucus, for arranging our use of this special auditorium. We will be privileged to hear from her and 5 of her Capitol Hill colleagues, Senators Ben Cardin and Chris Murphy, Representatives Matt Cartwright, Debbie Dingell, and Kelly Armstrong. And we are so fortunate to be joined by New York Times best-selling author John Grisham, the director of the Justice Department's Office for Access to Justice, Rachel Rossi, and ABA President Deborah Enochs Ross. This program also features 2 extraordinary panels. The Chief Justices from Indiana, Minnesota, Oregon, and Texas traveled here to discuss growing efforts to empower paralegals and other non-lawyer advocates to provide targeted, limited legal services. And our second panel, senior executives from some of America's leading businesses will discuss the importance of closing the justice gap for American business. Well, we hope these discussions today will help develop, refine, or expand new initiatives to address a persistent and pressing problem, the nation's justice gap. Now, really a justice crisis. Convening these forums was something that our LSC board launched a number of years ago in an effort to better educate our fellow countrymen about the significance of this growing crisis. LSC's 2022 Justice Gap Report, released just last April, demonstrated how wide that gap still is, revealing that low-income Americans do not receive any or enough legal help for 92% of their substantial civil legal problems. So unfortunately, despite our best efforts, the crisis in civil legal assistance for low-income Americans is raging on, and the chronic underfunding of LSC and its grantees is helping to fuel the crisis. As grateful as we are that the omnibus spending bill recently passed by Congress increased LSC's funding to $560 million, which was a 14.5% hike, and the president's budget for fiscal year 2024 seeks $800 million in funding for LSC, much more is needed to close this justice gap after years of inadequate support. Folks, in 1994, 29 years ago, Congress appropriated approximately $400 million for LSC. By 2022, LSC's appropriation had increased only slightly to $489 million, not remotely enough to keep up with inflation, much less the increased demand and need for services resulting from recessions, population growth, and the pandemic that have occurred over the last 3 decades. Recognizing the magnitude of that civil justice crisis, the LSC board voted unanimously to seek more than $1.5 billion from Congress for fiscal year 2024. But in addition to pursuing adequate funding, LSC and other stakeholders in the legal aid community have advanced numerous innovative initiatives to make the delivery of legal services more efficient and effective. As we will hear from the distinguished Chief Justices today, courts in a number of states are easing bar rules, adopting other regulatory reforms to make it possible for non-lawyers to provide some forms of legal assistance. Legal tech companies are harnessing the power of artificial intelligence and other innovations to help self-represented litigants navigate the court system. Many of these new tools are funded by LSC's Technology Initiative grants and were displayed at our annual Innovations in Tech conference held just a few months ago. And we're so grateful that the ABA continues to foster advances in pro bono assistance, including its highly successful Free Legal Answers program, which is expanding its capacity. And throughout the past decade, LSC has highlighted civil legal aid issues, proposed solutions and best practices for the field through a series of wide-ranging task forces. And spreading our message beyond the legal aid community has also been an important goal. Through forums like these, the growth of our extraordinary podcast, Talk Justice, and the work of our leaders and Emerging Leaders Council, many of you are here tonight, we're able to educate many more outside the field about the gravity of the crisis and what it means for our country. The civil legal aid community may be short of funds, but there's no lack of imagination, determination, and just old-fashioned grit. More than 50 years ago, the director of the Office of Economic Opportunity, Donald Rumsfeld, called for the federal funding of civil legal aid with the observation that, quote, "We cannot expect for the rule of law if we as public officials do not assure access to the legal process. To fail to do so would break faith with those Americans, rich and poor alike, who have confidence in our legal institutions and the notion that disputes are better resolved in courtrooms than on our street corners," unquote. Well, much is at stake in this struggle to expand access to justice. As former Pepperdine Law Dean and 10th Circuit Judge Danelle Taha made clear in a rousing call to action at an LSC forum several years ago, and I quote the Dean, "When the great majority of the individuals and small businesses of the nation no longer can, or believe they no longer can, get a lawyer, be represented effectively, go to court, settle their disputes in a fair and impartial way, and be treated like every other citizen, we quite simply have lost the guiding principle of our republic, equal justice under law. When that goes, the rule of law goes. And when that goes, the great dreams of those patriots who founded and fought for this republic go with it, never to be reclaimed. Something must be done," unquote. So let's together join and resolve that we will make LSC's 50th anniversary just next year the time when we get it done, when we live up to the promise of America to realize what Thomas Jefferson called the most sacred of the duties of government, to provide equal and impartial justice to all of its citizens. Thank you very much. It's now my great pleasure to introduce Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, who represents Michigan's 12th District since 2015. How wonderful to see you again, Congresswoman Dingell, and she is a force. She was one of the founders of the Congressional Access to Civil Legal Aid Caucus. She's been a frequent speaker at our events here in Washington and Ann Arbor. She serves on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, the House Committee on Natural Resources. She co-chairs the bipartisan working group to end domestic violence, as well as the Medicare for All caucus. She is a dedicated advocate for women and founded the National Women's Health Resource Center and the Children's Inn at the National Institutes of Health. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Debbie Dingell.